Hello, welcome to the end of June and Creative You Knitting and Crocheting Podcast. I'm your host, Catherine Kirby from Pennsylvania. I've been doing the podcast for I think about 2 years, and lately I've had a big chunk where I wasn't podcasting, and a lot of reasons. My husband got very sick and almost died, and it just really set me back. Sometimes once something's over, it's almost worse than when you were going through it. But here I am, and I have a lot to share. I hope the lighting's good. I feel like I'm kind of dark, but we'll give it a go and see. So a lot's been happening in my life. I opened up an Amazon store. So for a lot of you who haven't been able to find me online because I don't have an online shop, you can now go to Amazon, and I'll tell you how in just a few moments. So that took a lot of work, and I'm still working hard on it, and it did open up for a lot of sales. So when you have a small business and people aren't coming in like they used to, and you have all these beautiful products and the bills are coming in, it is very disheartening. And thank the good Lord, whom I love and I trust, the Amazon thing, even though they do take quite a big chunk of your profit, it's the joy of looking and seeing sales come in and knowing that people want what you have to offer. So I'd like to show you some of the things that I've been doing. I'm very light on crochet this time. I love to knit and crochet. Right now, all of my students are crochet students, and you can find some of the videos on YouTube. They're all children except one. Oh, kids are so fun, and they learn so fast. I mean, they just go. Excuse me, my throat is really dry today. So Louisa Harding, through Knitting Fever, had this really nice yarn. It's now discontinued, but I have a lot of it. It's a cotton blend called Marmo. And it looks like it has a glitzy stitch running through it. And I found this pattern in an old knitter's magazine called a diagonal scarf. And I'm going to have to find the issue, but I found it was really interesting how you start out like this and end up like this. And it's an easy to repeat pattern. And the yarn is fun, although my knots in the yarn came at the absolute worst places, and I don't want to clip them too close, so I don't know if I may have to put an edging on it. So I'm at the point now where I'm ready to start back. It's a nice soft yarn, and yet it feels kind of solid. You know, I've heard yarn shop owners say, if I hear the word stiff, soft, not stiff. If I hear the word soft one more time, I'm going to scream. Everybody comes in and says, I want yarn that's soft. Well, when you make a scarf, I think a couple things are important, that your edges look good. And then there's always the question of how long do you make it? And I think that depends. If you're going to gather it with a pin, it kind of pulls it up. But if you want to drape it around once, then it needs to be longer. And it also depends on how tall or short you are. Now, if I block this is really gonna pull this out. And I think it's about as wide as I want it to be. So that is that. This will be one of these projects that I'll be sorry when it's finished because it's been fun. I can see why some people get addicted to making shawls and scarves because It's so gratifying. It really is. I have made a bunch of Glorious Day scarves. And of course, when you own a shop, you make projects that you probably wouldn't make if you didn't own a shop. But the pattern is from Diana Austin. And it takes a very large needle, like a 17 needle. And this color is, I've realized now I've been pronouncing this wrong. It's a silent R, and it's beautiful. A flat yarn with 2 colors on each strand. And this one is called Cradle Mountain. They're all named after places in Australia. And at first, my husband and I would go on and we would just look on Google and look these places up. But it's a lot more fun to go to YouTube and type in Cradle Mountain or Redland City or Oolong, whatever. And people do vacation videos, and you can see why they chose all these colors. So when I went to pictures in the spring and the fall, they have fields of golden flowers, pinkish trees, blue mountains and lakes. And I can see why. This almost gives a woven look, but it's just all garter stitch. It's a very, very easy pattern. It's a free pattern. Has a nice little curl along the edges. I've done about 6 of them now. You can scrunch them up or make them wide, or if you blocked it, you could probably really pull it out, but I've never really felt the need because done on big needles, it's so springy, so kind of elastic. And so this is actually, I think, my best-selling yarn out of my whole yarn shop, which is surprising. It's a heavy worsted. People also crochet pocketbooks. It makes really cute baby sweaters. And I think the most popular pattern on Ravelry is the market bag that you do with 2 different colors. So when I've been looking up all of these Australian places and names, one of the Uluru yarns was named Tasmanian Devil. So I could not tell you what a Tasmanian Devil looks like, but I was curious and why they would have that name. And so I went on YouTube, and they're actually quite cute. They got their name because early settlers, probably in the Tasmania area, I'm assuming, would have to camp outside, and they'd hear these horrible screams at night. And so they called them Tasmanian Devils. And when they have their mouths open, they look really vicious and nasty. And they, but the little babies, as you can see, look quite snuggly and cuddly. And there they show you what a cutie. And he's actually like a little puppy dog, the way he frolics and follows this man around and jumps and runs. But when they get to screaming, and I don't know if we can hear it on this video, but they do make horrible noises. And you should go on and listen to it, and you would know why they got the name they got. But they're tiny. Okay. So other things that have been going on in my life, I've had 3 grandchildren that graduated from high school this month. That was a lot of fun. Birthdays. So I had a gal that wanted to learn Fair Isle knitting. So usually I do a baby hat, my first class, because They come with the ribbing already finished, and then we just go right into the two-handed Fair Isle. But this gal said, I really don't want to do a baby hat. So we picked a child to adult size hat. And I always like to knit along. So there's my husband. Hey, hun, I'm doing a podcast.
All right.
So this is a pattern called Love the Winter by Emily Dormier. And you can do a child-size baby, adult. It's done on an 8 needle with a worsted. I actually did a bulky yarn. It's an older Debbie Bliss yarn named Paloma. That is one of the yarns I love that's braided, and so it's fluffy, and I did the child's hat. And I think also Fair Isle can actually make things smaller, so sometimes you might want to do a bigger size. I think this was supposed to be the adult small, and I think that's pushing it. Also, if the pattern doesn't tell you to, you should really do your ribbing about 2 needle size smallers, or you get what's called flailing. It kind of flails out. But it's a cute pattern. I did it with a dark rosy red and a creamy ivory. And I would say for a first-time project, it's a good project. I would definitely do it again. And I think Pat, if you're watching, hi, I think she was happy with it. So earlier on, because I've been getting a lot of students, I had 3 girls, 3 sisters who were taking knitting classes. And I was trying to come up with a pattern for beginning knitting that kids do seem to like to do scarves that wouldn't get boring. So I designed this that they would learn to work in textured yarns and then learn how to change colors. So that's all garter stitch with James Brett Party Time Chunky and this textured yarn. And then they would get into switching from knitting to purling. That part would go around your neck. And then back to changing colors, and then back to the solid. So I thought it was quite cute. They could do pom-poms or tassels, and I think it would keep their interest because it does keep changing what you're doing, and it's soft. Oh. My husband and I are always looking for good movies, and someone got us a subscription to Netflix. I'm really put off when there's a lot of cursing, especially God's name. It just goes through me, or just filth. So it takes a while to search and find some good things, but there's a movie called Blue Winter, and it's based on a true story, and it's about a man that's trying to save his orphanage, and he himself was an orphan when he was young. And his friend can't help him with money, but he enters him into a blue marlin fishing tournament with a washed up, probably alcoholic captain who would also get purse money. And it was really good. And then a second movie that my crochet girls told me about was Rescued by Ruby, and it's a dog movie. Even if you're not a big dog lover, I can't imagine you wouldn't love the movie and love the actors. We watched it a few times, so that was really cute. And I'll let you know if we find some other good ones. There was one, I can't remember the name, but it's about prisoners who've been locked up for many, many years for crimes they did not commit. It might be called The Innocence Files. Boy, that really gets to you. It really does. So the two girls that started taking crochet classes, Caitlin and Catherine, are identical twins. And after a couple classes, and I said, what does your dad do? And they said, oh, he's a doctor. I got it. I remember in the doctor's lounge talking to their dad 12 years ago. And he said, my wife had twins today. And I said, oh, that's wonderful. Girls, boys, he said, 2 girls. And then here they are sitting in my yarn shop. It was really nice. And then I had another girl join the class called Cherish. I had a lot of trouble remembering her name. I wanted to call her Chastity. And so if any of you are old enough, I had to go back to the Partridge Family song that sang Cherish. It was an old song, kind of catchy, and every time I kind of glitched on her name, I'd think Cherish. I'd think of that song. And they have been fun. All the kids I've had have been fun. So Sharon, who's been on the podcast before, knitted a few things. And one is the Ranunculus, which everybody seems to be making. This is made with Juniper Moon Finley yarn, which is so lightweight. It feels fantastic on your skin. It's too bad you have to put like a camisole under it. You can do it with 1 skein of yarn and have yarn left. It's a $30 merino silk yarn, nice and springy, bouncy. And it's just a fantastic pattern. Though, I've never heard anybody talk about her other patterns. Is this just like you one time hit the ball out of the park? Because she has a lot of other nice patterns, but none that have really seemed to rival this. Her name is Midori Hirose, and most people that make this end up making another one almost right away. They love it so much, and it can be worn casually, or it can be worn even to a wedding. As if you watch the podcast, Knitting with Kim and Jonna wore hers to some of the wedding events. So it can be very classy looking. I like to, when I do a pattern by a designer, I like to click on the designer and see who they are. Does it tell anything about them? When you click on a podcast, don't you like to know a little bit about the person that's doing it? I live with my husband, 2 dogs, 2 cats, and I have a lot of grandkids. But some designers don't put anything, or the one lady put a picture of an alien, so can't really get to know her. But Sharon and I found a designer. She calls herself Regal and Chick Knits, and we both decided to do one of the shawls. She donates 25% to Animal Rescue. So Sharon did a shawl with Elspeth Levold's silky wool, and then a skein of, it's called Danube DK. And when we saw each other's shawls, I'm like, I like yours. She's like, I like yours. They're both nice. I told her I like the way the golds play with the other colors, the teal and the green and the stripe of pink. It's a nice pattern, just a short shawlette. I always like the little curlicues. Mine was done with this yarn, Lana Gatto. Take a guess on the pronunciation. I didn't use a full skein. It's a sport weight cotton yarn, and I did it with a purple Euro yarn called Kid Cotton, which is also a sport weight. But at the end, I found another sport weight cotton in yellow to finish it, because I thought I needed I thought I needed some pizzazz. Yeah. And I would like to, woo, I'm sorry, that probably made an ugly noise, but I dropped my notes. I would like to do, more of her patterns. I enjoyed it a lot. This would be, I think, more summery, all cotton. The one that Sharon would made would be great for fall and winter because it has the wool in it. Both pretty, really pretty. So what else? Let's see. The lady that did the Glorious Day scarf, and a lot of people have made this, and the yarn is actually produced canes, I think. I think the R is silent. Emily Dormier, she did a lot of other patterns. One was the quick ombre hat, which thousands of people made, but she's the one, I think, that has a picture of an alien and doesn't talk about herself, but she said that she has designed crocheting and knitting t-shirts with the theme of knitting and crocheting, but I went to the Etsy link and I didn't find any. So if you wanted to find me on Amazon, my shop name is Creative You. You would go into Amazon and you would type in this yarn, Cradle Mountain, and you would find Creative You. And once you click on that, you can find other yarns. I haven't figured out how to put on more colors. I'm just kind of listing on what's already there, which is I'd like to put on like all the colors and things I have. So talking about color, my cat was laying on this. I have a calico cat patches, and she sheds like no cat I have ever had. I comb her about 3 times a day and get a big ball of fur. I think it could be endless. I think I could just comb her forever. But one thing you have to give Noro Kureyon yarn, Kureyon means crayon, is that it's very colorful. And this is the knot bag. And I think there's a couple different knot bags. It's by Cindy Pilon. It's a pay for pattern. And I'm up to the part now where I do the handles. The beginning was kind of rough. A woman named Diane, if you're watching, she had trouble getting it started because it's one of those things where you have 4 double pointed needles and you only have like 1 or 2 stitches on each one and they keep falling off. And I said, well, you know what? I'll go ahead and knit one along with you. But she never really got to finishing it, and I kept waiting, so now I'm going to finish it. After the straps and all are done, it will get felted, and then I'll show it to you again. I think this is my second skein of yarn. And this color, I think, is like a wine. It can almost look like a brown, but no, it's not. And I think it looks really pretty with the greens. And she has various purses that she designed that are nice, classy looking. Let's see what else. I have to tell you a cute story about answered prayer. I mean, some people say to me, do you bother God with little stuff? Yeah, I think he's interested in everything. I talk to him about my projects I'm doing, everything. So my husband and I took 2 of the grandkids to this big playground park, about 35 minutes from here, and they have 3 or 4 big pavilions. They have at least 3 children's playgrounds. It's really great. So we have this toy called a foxtail, and it's like a baseball, but it has 2 patches on the sides with holes in it. So when you throw it, air squeaks through that, and it has a big long tail of different colors, and depending where you catch it, you get different points. So we were throwing this and we were really having fun, and it went way up in a tree. So Nolan had a soccer ball, and that we decided we would use that. And you got it. The soccer ball then went up in a tree. The foxtail was caught, just picture a scarf on 2 little twigs that came out. And so the 4 of us got together and prayed that God would help us because we couldn't do it. And I didn't realize there were people watching, but I felt the Holy Spirit saying, look in your trunk and see what you have. Well, I'd already looked in the trunk, and my husband looked in the trunk, and these things were really high up. And all I had were 2 boxes of hard-covered books that I was going to send to the thrift shop. So I didn't have enough strength to get the books way up, but my husband, after multiple tries, hit that, broke the 2 twigs, and the foxtail came tumbling down. Same thing with the ball. And I think people were amazed that we got them down, but God is good. He loves to answer prayer. He loves to help us. The Bible tells us that we don't get prayers answered because we don't ask. It's that simple. So let me show you this crochet project that's been going on quite a while, and it's time to get her done. I don't know if using fancy yarns are going to mess me up and make him look too big in parts or too small in others. I don't know. It's from a book called Spirit Animals. And if you listen to a prior podcast, the reason why I'm making the eagle is because we were on a picnic with grandkids out by the water, and we saw a big bird, and our friend was along, and he said, I think that's an eagle. And I felt so foolish later because I impulsively chirp in, oh no, that's not an eagle. Well, yes, it was. They have started to attract eagles to our town, and the eagle went over on this little tiny island, and we had binoculars out to try to find him. But he came right over by our picnic table as if to say, here, look, you can see me. Here I am in all my glory. So this book has quite a few animals in, and the eagle is just supposed to be done in regular yarn. But I have a lot of fancy yarn, and you have to use it for something. The neat thing is you don't have to work in a bunch of ends, you just have to stuff them in. So there's his head. I've shown that before. This is his neck. And I don't know if it looks like he has enough head. I mean, we'll see. One of the parts here is fatter. It's supposed to be fatter. And I didn't really get the points I should have because of this yarn. And if you have to tear out or you lose your loop, it's difficult to find it. There he is. I don't think you can see the stitches like you should be able to. I actually thought this looked like a cute little hat for a doll. But I'm ready to go into his neck and body, and I'm going to use this yarn called Romance. I think it's from, might be, I'm not sure, so I'm not going to say, but we'll see how it looks, and hopefully next podcast he will be stuffed and ready to go. So I've had a lot of new viewers. I have invited all of the people that have bought Amazon yarns from me from Amazon to join the group, but there have been a few in the last week, and I would like to welcome everybody and thank you. Thank you for joining into my podcast. So what other things are in the works? This is a barely buttoned top. And I fell into that trap when one of the people made it that said, oh, I knocked this out in 3 days. Well, let me tell you, in 3 days, I had to rip it out because I had dropped a stitch near the beginning and there just was no way of fixing it. Maybe I'm a slow knitter, I don't know, but this is probably 3 days of working on it. It is a nice yarn. It was a yarn that was sold on eBay that is soft. It's a cotton, a very soft cotton blend, bamboo cotton blend. Even though they call it cashmere, it doesn't have cashmere. You just have these small little buttonholes. And let me see if I can show you a picture. And the designer is Nicole Thoresen Knits, and I'll put this in my description. Well, before I look that up, I will show you the other one I'm working on. Yes, I'm working at 2 at a time. In Noble Cotton, which is a cascade yarn. And it has this really neat pattern. You could probably see it better if I had dark yarn, but it's called Itaka. I guess it's called Itaka. And it's by Svetlana Volkova. And I also had to rip all of that out because she has kids and adult sizes when you buy the pattern, and I didn't know that. And I had a whole bunch done, and then I clicked on the pattern and brought up the kids pattern and thought it was the pattern and didn't understand why I had so many stitches on it, and I ripped it out for nothing. But she has several categories of patterns: kids, accessories, sweaters, sweaters and tops, cardigans. She's definitely worth checking out, definitely. The other one, the barely buttoned top, is, and this is fingering weight, if I didn't say that. One of the things I like about Ravelry is the history page, that you can pull up your history page. So I'm not going to make mine that low cut, and I'm going to make it more of a crop top. And it is a $6 pattern. And she doesn't have many projects yet, but I think she will. And when you look at her project page, she doesn't tell anything about herself either, but she has a bunch of designs done. So it's anybody's guess which one I'll finish first, or trying to get better about being dedicated and finishing things. And how many of you see something and you want to start it right away? I saw this crocheted blanket today called Beautiful Shells. And right away, I wanted to cast it, crochet, start chaining away. And I already have crochet blankets that I need to finish. And there's about 2,000 projects for this blanket in all different colors. And it looks like it might be a square. This person edged theirs in white. It is a free pattern too. This person did all of it in white, so you can't really tell. But they are so pretty. You know, I always tell my customers the best time to make a blanket is when you don't need a blanket. Because once you need one, then you feel pressured. So this little silk scarf that I have on, we went to Massanutten in Virginia one time, and they have a lot of craft classes. And they give you a silk scarf. Some of the guys did incredible neckties. And you put rubber bands all around it, like when you do tie-dye. And you end up with a really scrunched up scarf. And then you take permanent markers and you just start coloring in all over. And when you think you're finished, you seal it with an iron so your colors stay in. And I mean, it does take, I don't know, maybe 3 hours. I mean, it takes some time, and if you overdo it, it cannot look good, but you know, you can always make another one, right? You can always make another one. So anything else here? I think, oh, I had a birthday. Since I've opened the shop 7 years ago, I haven't had any spending money, none. And I love to plant flowers. Now I have some perennials, and I was able to split some of them and move them. There was a teenage guy named Calvin that came one evening and said, you know, I'm looking for work and this is what I really love. And I told him what I'd want done and said, oh yeah, I can do that. I never heard from him again. But hostas, I split them. Spring is the time to do it. But my husband told me for my birthday, I thought he said he was going to let me go to a greenhouse and pick out whatever I wanted, but he gave me a lily and a bush. So, you know, beggars can't be choosy, you know, be thankful. I don't really understand that so many women say, oh, husband want thank for everything they do. Does anybody thank me for washing the floor? You know what? It doesn't cost anything to say thank you. I mean, we all like to be appreciated, right? And, you know, doesn't God say treat others the way you'd like to be treated? We like when people notice that we wash the floor, and I think sometimes our husbands just want us to know that they did it. Many years ago, when my dad retired at 55, he was forced into retirement. My mother was planning this little dinner party, and my dad thought he would be helpful. So he washed down all the kitchen cupboards. And when she came home and he told her, she spazzed out. She had just washed them and polished them the night before, and he took off all her polish. So sometimes I feel sorry for the guys. I wouldn't want to go out in the garage and try to guess how to clean or organize so when you do stuffies, your stitches have to be really tight. I have so many fails from my first couple years when the stitches weren't tight enough, and you can see the stuffing, and then the neck isn't stuffed tight enough, and they look like they have a broken neck. So this is just a little bag for little girls that like to put their doll or their animals or whatever. It's like a little, not necessarily a backpack, but a little, and I'm using this bulky cotton yarn, which is really nice, but I'm doing it with a smaller needle, just to get into the practice of nice, neat, small stitches. Now you can see where I come to the end every time, and I'm not sure how to get around that. I'm not joining it, but I'm just using up stash and bright colors and so forth. So also, I feel like I've been fighting bugs. Yesterday, there were ants all out front when I opened the front door, all over the kitty food. They are what's called pavement ants. They go down in the cracks of the pavements, and it's no point to kill them. I've been reading up on it, because unless you kill the queen or queens, it's useless. And then we have beetles trying to get in through our screens. And that very same day, I found mouse droppings in my sewing room, and so frustrating. I'd rather spend my time knitting and crocheting and not chasing insects and bugs. So I think that's it. I hope to be more regular. Again, thank you for all of you who have joined in. Hi to Laura Bell. I'll try to mention some other names every podcast, and I hope to do some giveaways in the future. So thank you for all your support. You know, when my husband was very sick, he gets sick practically overnight. It has to do with Agent Orange wrecking his lungs. And usually I kind of know his chronic cough changes and he seems kind of tired, and then boom, he's in bed, and you don't know what's going to happen. So for 3 days, he didn't sleep, eat. He loses like 20 pounds in a week and a half. He turns into skin and bones. And as a doctor and a history of a nurse, I thought he was getting septic, which means you get an infection and it gets in your bloodstream. And he was coughing up horrible stuff, and he was weak, and we were both exhausted. And he, you know, I was doing everything for him that medically could be done. And after 3 nights of not sleeping, we fell asleep. And I woke up a few hours later. You know, with fibromyalgia, things up against your skin cause pressure. And I woke up like, what is this heavy thing against me? And it was his arm, and it felt like a tree. It was so dead weight. It was cold. He had been so hot for 3 days, running fevers, and he was cold, and he was dying. He was dying. His blood pressure was just bottoming out, and his heart rate was sky high. And he had made it clear that he didn't want to go to the hospital with all this COVID stuff and people dying alone. And I just prayed, and praise God, he was still alive in the morning, and he turned around. And it doesn't matter if you have a history of being a medical provider, it's scary. And I went into kind of a despondency because I felt so alone. I mean, people weren't calling. I felt like, does anybody care? But, you know, I was trying to process this, and the people that did reach out to me, Sharon did, my mom was good, but it was you all. It was my viewers. And that just kind of snapped me right out of it. Said, get back into this podcast, get back into the game of life. Let's go, girl. So I'll see you soon. My motto is shine, baby, shine. Take care.